So tonight we're obviously going to be writing an LEQ, and it's going to be a period 2 LEQ because I know y'all are probably, it's been a while since you've done that, and it's been, you're probably so focused on period 6 that you haven't been focusing on the earlier periods. So we're going to kind of, talk about period 2 a little bit and go over some of that material. And then along with that, we're going to be going over again how to write an LEQ, and then we're probably going to be outlining an LEQ or writing an LEQ. And we're not going to write a period 1 LEQ because odds are you're not going to get one of those. So you're better off knowing period 2 than period 1 for the exam in general too. All right, so just first before we get started and stuff, can you guys like drop in the chat, scale of like 1 to 5, how you guys feel with the LEQ, just in terms of, or actually 1 to 6. Give me a 1 to 6. Like your average score you think on like an LEQ. Okay, 4.
That's pretty good.
5. Peter, you took this exam already, so stop flexing. Okay, so yeah, I'm seeing like low to medium. Okay. So yeah, I mean, we'll definitely answer any of your questions tonight if you guys just go into the ask a question bit and stuff like that. But let's just jump right into it. We'll start by just going over the rubric and stuff like that. Here, let me pull this up here. There we go. Okay. So here, Jillian, you can go over some of the points if you want to, stuff like that.
Okay, so the first point, and probably the one that you can get no matter what the topic is your thesis or your claim. So you get the point if you respond to the prompt with a thesis that you can defend in any way. So if you see, when you're looking at your LEQ prompts and you're going through and you're trying to figure out which one to choose, even if you're feeling a little stressed, know that whatever topic you can choose, that you can write a solid and defensible thesis. Even if you're a little bit nervous about writing the LEQ itself, this is the point that you should get no matter what.
Oh yeah. Here, any questions that you guys drop? By the way, I'm going to just drop in the ask a question box so we can kind of answer those at like a specific time. All right. I'll go over contextualization just because that's a point that I tend to do better on. So it's basically like if you have your topic, right? You have, for this one, it's going to be religion spreading in period 2. You want to think about the big picture ideas that come with that. So like it says on the point, a broader historical context. So you kind of think like if you ever watch like Star Wars, you have the text crawling up before each movie, kind of goes over just the major points that happened in the last movie. That's what your context is. It just kind of fills in your reader as to what's going on worldwide, as opposed to like, well, here's what's happening in China. Here's what's happening in Africa. Here's what's happening in Europe. That's more evidence. With your context, you're thinking worldwide, expansion of trade, development of world religions, globalization, industrialization, imperialism, stuff like that. And so that's definitely really an easy point to get, especially if you understand the key concepts. So that's really something that you want to understand.
And then our next 1 or 2 points actually comes from the evidence category. And for this one, this is where you really get to show your knowledge and back up that thesis, that great thesis that you just wrote. And you're going to try and provide some really specific good examples. And you can get 1 point if you provide some examples that are relevant to the prompt. But getting that second point, it really requires backing up your own argument and just proving that you know what you're writing about.
Yeah, and so with the evidence point, what you really want to do is when you write a piece of evidence down, so you have, let's say you're writing an essay on the Columbian Exchange and you talk about like smallpox, you want to explain why that proves that, why is it a cause or an effect of the Columbian Exchange? You want to talk about the very, you want to explain your evidence in enough detail that it proves whatever points you're making. By the way, Ida, we're going to write an example essay, so we can give you an example of a thesis. All right, and then the last 2 points that you get are your like analysis points. They're kind of called a bunch of different things. So there's analysis, reasoning, complexity. They're kind of all bunched into like this one little category. So you get 1 point just for using your historical reasoning skills, so comparison, causation, or continuity change over time, to frame your argument that addresses the prompt. So, if you get a prompt on, like we're going to look at a religion one today, if you just spent a few paragraphs talking about religions in general, you wouldn't get this point. But if you structured your essay about change, causation, or comparison, you would get that first point because you're framing it around a historical thinking skill. And then the second point is what I think to be the hardest point to earn on an LEQ. I know when I was doing it, I never really understood how I got it. I just kind of sometimes got it or sometimes I didn't. And so it's really important to understand this point and really know how to earn it effectively, especially because it can differ on the essay. So these 5 bullet points right here, these are the 5 ways that you're able to earn the complexity point. I'll go through them one by one. So the first is explaining nuance of an issue by analyzing multiple variables. So this is something like looking at, positive and negative effects, or it's kind of the like classic one, positive or negative effects, or just 2 different aspects of something. And then the second point is probably the easiest way to get it, is just explaining both similarity and difference, or both continuity and change, or multiple causes, or both causes and effects. So really, when you use both of the skills, so similarity and difference, or cause and effect, you earn that point easily, just because it's, as long as you earn the first one, which to earn the first one, or the second one, you kind of have to earn the first one. And so that's really the easiest way, and I think the way that most people earn the point. However, the other 4 are still worthwhile. You should probably at least try on the exam to squeeze in one of them. So the third one is explaining relevant and insightful connections within and across periods. So this is really your synthesis point. This used to be a real point on the exam. It just, now it's part of this. So it's really, you want to look at a different time period and say, where has this happened before, in different times and in different places. It's this rather simple point, but it takes a little practice to get. And the other 2 are really regarding how relevant and how accurate your argument is by either corroborating it across themes, or by looking at evidence through different lenses, possibly through an economic and a political perspective, or through a social perspective, and qualifying your argument by considering those diverse or alternative views of evidence. And then it goes to kind of say you can't really do this by just saying something like a sentence, but it has to be part of your argument, not just a phrase or a reference. So you can't just get it by squeezing it in there and forcing it. So those are the 6 points. So here, I'll pull up the document now so we can get really working on this essay. I know me and Jillian are gonna really work through this essay, but we'll also have you guys giving us evidence, or asking for stuff like that, so that if you guys want to contribute and stuff like that, we can really So the first thing we want to do with an essay like this is look for the skill. So yeah, Jillian, you can go over like looking for the skill and trying to find out all that stuff.
Yeah, so when you're looking at your prompt for the LEQ, you can already kind of set yourself in the time period where you're going to provide some context before you write your thesis. So as we're looking at this one, you can already see that we obviously have the period 600 BCE to 600 CE, which you should automatically know is period 2. So start thinking now as you're looking at the prompt, what important things are really going on in period 2. And then as we continue reading the prompt, we see that they're asking us about different factors that led to the emergence and spread of new religions and belief systems, such as Buddhism, Confucianism, and Christianity. So now we're kind of narrowing it in more. So you know that you're in period 2 and you're thinking about things in period 2, and now we're narrowing it down so that we're looking more specifically at religion and what's going on with religion. So you're thinking about that. Remember, you have about 5 minutes on the LEQ where you can get your thoughts together and kind of plan out what you're going to do for your LEQ.
Yeah, definitely. And then looking at this prompt, it probably pops out right away that this is a pretty clear causation essay, just by talking about different factors and how factors led to the emergence or spread of religions. So that's really what this essay is asking you. Like, to boil this down to just like a single sentence prompt, it could probably be, analyze the causes of the spread of religions. That's kind of what this question is asking. So that's what you want to look at when you're actually writing your essay. So when you're writing your essay, you want to focus on causes of spread of religion. So yeah, so like we can spend this first 5 minutes kind of planning and talking about, what relevant evidence and stuff like that would relate to this prompt. So with me, I like to think about like 3 big topics to talk about in my essay. So you have your 3 body paragraphs, and so yeah, we should start by just thinking about possible possible body paragraphs and possible just causes in general. So you guys can drop in the chat, and then me and Jillian can also talk about some causes of the spread of religion. So yeah, if you guys like, you can just think of something kind of broad that you want to be able to support it with evidence and stuff like that. So I know like we have spread of Buddhism through the Silk Road. Okay, so that would make a really good piece of evidence. right? But yeah, like Alice kind of hit the nail on the head. So we have, our first body paragraph with trade. That's definitely a really important way that it spread. So, can we think of any others? We can also talk about this if you guys want us to go over some causes. Empires forcing, okay, so like political support you're talking about? Religious ideologies. Yes, I mean, you're all giving, right, so yeah, Ashoka, stuff like that. So you can get some good evidence there. So we can write that down. All right, and so there's one other that you guys could really use or talk about. So yeah, political structures. All right, and Jillian, if you have anything, I feel like I've been talking a lot, but
Oh no, go ahead.
So yeah, if you think of any, I feel like we got to get used to this whole like co-live streaming thing.
Yeah, so we're not just like waiting for each other.
Yeah, exactly. We got to kind of get better in sync. Religions used for government. So yeah, you're all giving great evidence for the political support. So try to think of a third cause. Think about Buddhism and Christianity specifically. How did they spread on these trade routes? Who went on these trade routes to spread their religion? There's like missionaries. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. So here are three big topics. And that's really what you want to do in your essay, or in your planning. Just come up with your three big things. So we have three causes now. So now we even got the complexity point because the two complexity points because we are, we're surrounding our essay about causes, and we've already identified multiple causes. So there we got 2 points right there. We're probably going to earn another 2 evidence points. That's a 4 on the essay right now. All right, so Jillian, you want to talk about any possible context or any sort of big ideas happening during this time period?
Well, we're definitely seeing that we have these belief systems. So we have Buddhism and Christianity and Confucianism. It's a little less about. There's not really like gods for that one, but definitely we see with like Christianity, we're seeing monotheistic a faith emerging. And then with Buddhism, we have in India, I think we were talking a little bit about that one earlier. We were talking about Ashoka. So that would be great to add into your essay as you're talking about Buddhism. I don't know. What else would you add, Dylan?
Probably because we're thinking about the big picture stuff that's happening worldwide. I'd probably say the development of religion. We could also talk about the spread and rise of empires, because we're definitely going to be talking about political support, and then I'd say also probably the development of trade routes. So there are three possible contexts. So you really you kind of want to pick 1 or 2 of those and spend a paragraph, give or take, talking about it, and then connect that to the spread of religion. So that's really your major. So when you're writing your essay, when you're talking about the development, let's say we choose development of religion, you want to spend a few sentences talking about how in period 2, religions began to develop and come into their own globally, as a world process. You can give maybe some examples of religions, talk about, and then even like if you really want to kind of modify that first sentence, this in the period 600 BCE to 600 CE, different factors. But you could probably say something like this, not as your thesis, but leading into your thesis. So, we could say something, in the period 600 to 600, many religions began to rise as new empires began to spread throughout the world. Something. Mention some big religions, stuff like that. Talk about why they rose. So, we have things like people wanting salvation, people wanting to feel safe. People want to explain the natural world, stuff like that. And so, yeah. So I know that's some good context right there. So we have our context and we have our three points that we're going to make. So now from here, we can form our thesis. Yeah, we can mention, they say 1 or more religions. Judaism might not be as strong because it was from period 1, but Zoroastrianism, if you know enough about it, yeah, go for it. Jillian, do you have any like formats for your thesis? I know I have a couple, but I'll let you kind of talk a little bit because I know I've gone over them before.
Well, for this one, since we're focusing more about cause and effect, I definitely I always start my LEQ with my context and then kind of set that up. And then as I'm leading into my thesis, I always kind of block it out in the order that I'm going to write my paragraphs. So I usually go for 5 paragraphs. So I have my first one with my context and my thesis, and then in my thesis, I just block it out my 3 body paragraphs, what those are going to be, and I just put my main ideas into my thesis in the order that I'm going to talk about them.
Right. So do you have any like, way of writing your thesis that you kind of use with most essays to kind of just always get the point so that you don't have to worry about how to write it, or do you just kind of write it from essay to essay?
I actually kind of changed mine a little bit depending on whether it's causation or CCOT. So if you have more of like one you use every time, like you can go ahead and suggest that.
Right. So like for me with this essay, I use the same 3. I had a different format for each essay type. So for something like this, I would probably say like in the period, 600 BCE to 600 CE, religions rose and spread due to blank, blank, and blank. Something like that's how simple the thesis is. When you're writing something like that, with those blanks, you want to probably add not just like due to trade, political support, and missionaries. You want to say due to growing trade routes during this period, political support from emperors and rulers, and the use of missionaries to spread, faith. So you really want to have like more than just like 3 words. Like you want to kind of start to flesh it out, but then in your paragraphs, obviously, you're going to really talk about it. So can you guys like try to drop in the chat using either that format, or if you guys have a different way of writing it, drop in the chat a type of thesis that maybe you would write for this prompt or something like that, so you can see kind of where you're at and stuff like that. I just realized, Jillian, I don't think you have editing on this document.
No, I don't.
I was gonna say I'll try to get that to you. There you go. How am I gonna get this to you? All right, I'm gonna paste this in the chat and then delete it really quickly when Jillian, you tell me you're on, and hope that no one else clicks it. So.
Okay.
All right, there it is. Just tell me when you clicked it.
Yeah, I clicked it.
All right, there we go. All right, so we got 1 so far. So yeah, Alice, that might get the point. It's just with those where you said spread due to trade routes, political support, and missionaries, you might want to add a couple more words kind of to just like talk about more specifically, due to growing trade routes or due to political support from emperors or from rulers, stuff like that. But I think that probably would earn the point still, possibly. If there are any teachers in here who have graded this prompt before, feel free to, drop if these would get the point or if they wouldn't, if they're lacking, stuff like that. So I'll give it maybe a minute or 2 more, and then we'll fill in, Jillian and I can fill in that thesis that we have right there so that we can, move on with the real nitty gritty of the essay, which is the evidence. This is always the most awkward part of streams when I'm like waiting for everyone to type. All right, here we go. Religions in the period 600 to 600 rose and spread due to the rise of trade routes, political support through emperors, and missionaries trying to spread their religion. There we go. That's perfect. Yeah, I feel like everyone's kind of writing down the same thing. So yeah, that's basically your thesis. So you're, Jillian, you can fill that in with something that we have, and I'll kind of fill it in as we go. All right, so we have. I'll drop here like missionaries. There we go. So yeah, like with your thesis, and I can pull up the scoring guidelines for this if you guys want. We can, we can look at what they always give you an example of, whatever they're called, of like what's a minimally acceptable response and what's like what's a good thesis. So like, you want to kind of shoot for, obviously a high scoring thesis. Whoa, spread due to the rise of empires looking to strengthen their power through new ideologies, growing trade routes across Eurasia and mission. Yeah, that's Ida, that's perfect. That's a really perfect thesis. So if you wrote that down, that would 100%, at least in my book, earn the point, right, Julian?
Yeah.
It's definitely, yeah. You look at some of these theses and they're really, really long. Like, these only have to be maybe 1 to 3 sentences. So it really doesn't have to be a super crazy, event. So here you can see it's only, let me check. It's only 30 words, so it doesn't have to be a super long thing. All right, so now let's start thinking about outlining our essay. So we have 3 paragraphs, 3 body paragraphs, right? So paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3. For each of these, the first thing you want to do is just pick your, what one of your 3 things are going to, be the topic of each paragraph. So that's what you have your thesis for. That's what your thesis is almost just like, in this paper, you will show that in the period 600 to 600, religions grew. Yeah, and go in the order of your thesis, just because it's kind of easiest, because you kind of have to you don't have to really memorize anything. So yeah, like paragraph 1, it would be growth and intensification of trade routes. All right. But Jillian, you can talk a little bit about like the difference between what we have to put to get like the first evidence point and the second evidence point, and how to really earn both of those points.
Okay, remember with your LEQ that you don't have a ton of time to write this, so you have about 40 minutes. So don't stress so much about trying to write it like you would be writing an English essay. When you have a grader looking at your paper, they know that it's going to be kind of a rough draft. So ignore more of that flowery language that you might be used to using, and don't be afraid to make it just really specific as you're writing. So if I'm starting my first paragraph, I'm going to say something like, one reason that religions rose and spread was due to, and then since this is our first paragraph, we're going to talk about growth and intensification of trade routes. And then after you have that kind of first sentence for your paragraph, that's when you're going to go in with your examples, and you're going to say, an example of this is the Silk Road because, and then you're going to talk a little bit about the Silk Road and how religion spread on the Silk Road, something like that. So it's very formulaic. Try and come up with a strategy that's going to let you lay out your LEQ, and then use that every time so that you're not missing parts.
Yeah, definitely. And I know, I like how you mentioned that you want to actually say how it proves your argument. So like the first evidence point would be if we mentioned the Silk Roads, the Indian Ocean roads, trade routes, Indian Ocean roads really, and other trade routes throughout Eurasia. We'd get that second point if we explain how through those trade routes religion spread through cultural diffusion, through stuff like that. And so we can say like because of these trade routes, religion was able to spread between regions due to traders bringing not only goods but also culture, religion, language, and holy books to new places. So like we can start thinking, drop some pieces of pieces of specific evidence that would prove this point. And then while you guys do that, I'll also bring up. I'll kind of close this tab for a second. Where are you? There we go. So yeah, like right here, what Jillian was talking about. It says here, the components of this essay each require that students demonstrate historically defensible content knowledge. So it doesn't have to be 100% perfect, and they don't expect you to be. Even says exam essays should be considered first drafts. And so really the errors of that, if you spell a word wrong, or if you have poor grammar or structure, it won't be counted against you unless it's so bad that it's makes your essay unreadable, to the point where they can't understand what you're saying. There we go. Pull this back up. There we go. So merchants of different religions spread their ideas in cities and trade centers. All right, so Israel, like that's a good explanation, but you probably want to give a more specific example. So a trade route or a religion that spread, stuff like that. Buddhism emerged at India to spread to Southeast Asia and China through trade and missionaries. Okay, so missionaries, obviously we can talk about in paragraph 3. But yeah, like Buddhism emerging would be a good idea to talk about, and stuff like, specific trade route, a specific thing. So like when you're saying just trade routes, you might want to name a specific trade route or a specific trade thing that connects to it. It's like, Jillian, if you want, you can also type in some examples that you can think of or talk about some stuff that you can think of with evidence.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see in the chat too, definitely Buddhism on the Silk Road as it's traveling up through India and over to China. Yeah, just remember that we're talking about the growth and intensification of trade routes. So as I'm looking in here and I'm seeing, yes, the Silk Road and Indian Ocean trade, those are great examples of two trade routes that we could talk about and expand on as our evidence for the first paragraph.
Yeah, so for like these types of essays, you probably want to find, 2 or 3 good solid pieces of evidence. So, if you have only one very specific one, if you can go on that with a paragraph, go for it, write it down. But yeah, also Christianity spread through the Silk Road in period 2. Really, it spread more in period 3 also. But remember, in period 3, the Christian world kind of shut down for 1,000 years. That's kind of the best way to put it. Like, they literally just kind of shut down until the Crusades. So yeah, it's like we have China and Rome through the Silk Roads. We can also talk about Buddhism through the Silk Roads. So Buddhism to where does Buddhism spread? I'm forgetting. Billion, if you can kind of fill me in here.
Remember Buddhism, we're starting with Siddhartha, and then we're in India, and then it kind of goes up through India and over to China in period 2.
Right, yes. We have, how can you talk about the Indian Ocean trade for religions? You could talk about, like religion spreading around Southeast Asia and going through there. And you could also talk about cultural diffusion and syncretism. But also, for a solid synthesis point, not going to lie, you could talk about the Indian Ocean trade spreading Islam in period 3, and boom, you get your synthesis right there. That's your complexity point. We already got it, but it couldn't hurt to drop that. So we have Buddhism in India, China and Japan to India, China, Japan through Indian Ocean, trade routes, and Silk Road. There we go. So through traders, bringing religion, holy books, language, etc. to new regions. There you go. So yeah, like those are 2 really solid pieces of evidence that we have that that really go to show how trade impacted the spread of religion during this time period. Yeah, and you can talk about Japan selective borrowing of Chinese culture. That's really period 3 though. So right, it's period 3, so it would earn you the complexity point. So we can kind of let's write that down also actually, so we can say synthesis. We talk about Islam spread through, if you remember with Islam, and I can pull up a map if you guys want me to, you have like the Swahili coast, right? And you also have Indian traders who have things like Sufis bringing, Islam to Southeast Asia. And even today, Southeast Asia is a very Muslim area. So really, it really goes to show, how the spread of religions, really impacted this area. So Islam spread through. And I'm just going to shorthand myself to just Indian Ocean trade route to IOTR, just so I don't have to type it out. You still get points, even if that's synthesis. You get a different point. You get the complexity point.
And you could also say that Islam spread through the trans-Saharan trade and talk a little bit about how it spread to North Africa too.
Right. Yeah. So definitely through Africa. Yeah, and the spread of Islam is really an important thing for this exam. So that's something that you should probably try your best to understand, because it's definitely something that, it's kind of 2 or 3 just the same things. Yeah, you could definitely use Mansa Musa as an example. Mansa Musa would probably make a better synthesis example for period 3 or paragraph 3 though with missionaries. Right, Jillian, do you agree, or do you think he'd also fit in here?
I would probably myself, I would include it in the missionaries category, but you definitely could use it in this paragraph if you wanted to.
Yeah, definitely. You wouldn't lose. I can talk. You can't lose points. So worst comes to worst, if you think about it, just write it down. But yeah, he's more of a missionary than a trader. But you could totally connect his caravan of 1,000 different people and stuff like that. African routes. You can also talk about like Sufism and Southeast Asia / India. You can talk about in period 4 even we have syncretism we see Sikhism. So all these things are really synthesis-y things. They would get you that stuff like that. Can you mention China and Japan persecuting Christian missionaries? Yeah, totally. These are like all the things you're mentioning. If they're in period 3, could definitely be a very good, synthesis. And Jillian, you can touch on that more if you want.
Oh yeah, just like looking at the chat, you guys have got some great examples that you could use for getting that synthesis point. All of these are just some really great examples that show that you really know the content. So if you can do this when it comes time to take the AP test, then you're going to be set up for success.
Yeah, definitely. Like some of these things you're mentioning are really, really good specific pieces of evidence. So China persecuting Christian missionaries is the persecuting missionaries. Complex, yeah, you would get the complex reasoning point for that. You'd probably be analyzing the spread of religion through multiple variables or through multiple perspectives. So it'd be definitely a complexity point thing, not an evidence point thing. Complex reasoning has to relate to the prompt. So with this, it would relate to the spread of religions. You probably have to connect it in a couple sentences, but yeah. Complexity is really a hard point to earn. I'll give that to you. All right, so we have some good stuff to talk about with paragraph 1. So now let's move on to paragraph 2, which is political support, right? So let's think, what are some specific examples of political support from empires that led to the spread of religions? Just drop some specific pieces of evidence. Roman Emperor and the Perp, yeah, everyone knows the Perp. Pope worked together to control people. Constantine of Rome, Ashoka encouraging Buddhism. So yeah, Israel and Ian, you kind of hit the 2 big ideas that I was talking about. If there was the Roman Emperor working with the Pope, that might work. I don't know anything really about that just because I don't, not too well read on the Roman Empire. But if it works, it works. So I'm gonna write down like Constantine and Rome. And with these, you don't just want to mention Constantine freed, Christianity. You want to really tell like almost like a story almost. You want to talk about how in Rome prior to Constantine's rule, Christianity is outlawed. However, when Constantine became the emperor, he enacted the Edict of Milan in 413. It's 413, right? It's either 413 or 314. Yeah. And so he, you really want to explain how it led to the spread of religions. And so, so that's really the point. So, like with these, like when I write down Constantine and Rome, that's point 1. However, the thing I'm about to write down next is really point 2. And I'll just move this onto a new page. So we see before, Rome outlaws. I'm just gonna write it as Exianity just because I'm too lazy to type anything out. I'll write it out. There we go. However, after we see, Constantine passes Edict of Milan, and not Milan. Yes, Milan. Google that. In 313. Wow, I was wrong both times. In 313 CE, which led to less persecution.
When it legalizes Christianity.
Yeah. And led to the spread of the religion safely. And led to Christianity becoming the official religion of the Roman Empire. And eventually you see this really, really go crazy in period 3. Remember, if you think about in period 3, the Pope basically runs the world, or at least runs Europe. He's the guy who calls for the Crusades. He's the guy who calls for everything. Christendom, exactly. So you can see after seeing that legalism, Taoism are not good for governing, a Chinese emperor adopts Confucianism and leads to new ideology. You could even talk about civil service exams. I'm actually going to just copy and paste that. That's really good. You also see like new civil service exams. That's really something that you should know about Confucianism. Like when you hear it, think education, because these have like civil service exams, the major example. Chinese emperor. I don't remember which one, but you don't need to know it. There we go. So we can say led to a Confucian-based political structure based on education, morals, and Confucian ideas. Then we connect that to spread. Studying Confucianism is kind of a weirder. What would be the border between a good level of evidence and too much evidence? There's no level of too much evidence. I mean, Jillian, if you have a bit differing opinion on that, you can mention that.
Definitely wouldn't say there is such a thing as too much evidence. The only thing I would say is that there can be too little time if you're spending too much time trying to write all of your knowledge about a topic. So make sure that you're answering the question, and definitely include as much evidence as you can, but always make sure that you're keeping track of your time, because again, you only have about 40 minutes to write this LEQ.
Yeah, definitely. And with the LEQ, really, you don't, everyone says you have 40 minutes to write it. Technically, you have 100 minutes to write it, but you also need to squeeze in the DBQ. So really, for me, can you connect civil service to tributary systems? Maybe a little bit. You have to have a really strong connection between that and spread of religions. And so, like you probably have to have a strong connection, especially because it's period 3 when that happens. Confucianism is kind of a weirder one because it never really spreads out of China. You think about it, you don't have any Confucian nations anymore, literally. But, you don't see any Confucian nations even in periods 3, 4, 5, 6, 3, 4, 5, stuff like that. So it's really more of a different spread. So it's a spread through the country, and led to expansion of Confucian ideals such as, you can mention filial piety, 5 relations.
Veneration.
Should I say that again?
Ancestor veneration.
Yeah. Stuff like that. And then the third one I know everyone was mentioning was whatever it's called, Ashoka, right? So, So Jillian, if you want to talk about Ashoka a little bit, just because I feel like I've been talking for so long.
So remember that Ashoka is kind of the Mauryan dynasty in India. So someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he has kind of like this dream about Buddhism, and then he kind of goes and he really emphasizes the just like kind of the pillars of Buddhism, and he spreads it throughout India. So then it becomes more popular because, again, if you have someone in power who supports your religion, then you're going to be, I guess, more likely to practice it. Again, so like if we were talking about Christianity in Rome when it was outlawed, if something's outlawed and it's illegal to be Christian, then you're probably not going to want to be outwardly Christian. But when Ashoka is supporting Buddhism in India, then we see that it's easier to spread because, again, we have these political leaders that are helping to influence the spread.
All right, yeah, definitely. So I'll drop that as a question. So he definitely led to the spread of religion politically after, and he kind of has a dream about Buddhism after a war that happens in India. You really don't have to know about. You just kind of have to know that in a war he converted to Buddhism, and he establishes, as Jillian was mentioning, rock and pillar edicts. He has, let me think, he has a bunch of stuff. He makes Buddhism essentially law, right? So you could say this, this spread Buddhism and intensified the ways that it, was practiced and spread throughout the world. You might want to explain that a little bit better. But yeah, so that's kind of, those are our 3 big pieces of evidence for that. All right, now let's move on to paragraph 3. So that's paragraph 2, really. You got 3 good pieces of evidence that you could talk about. So let's move on to missionaries. So can you guys give any good examples of missionaries? Yeah, and if I mute my mic from time to time, it's just because my dogs are barking. All right, so apostles, Christianity. Jillian, I know you're an AP Euro, so you probably know a lot more about Christianity than really I do.
Oh yeah, AP Euro is a lot about religion, but we pick up a little later about like the Middle Ages. Kind of is where we start with our context, and then we move later. We start about really the curriculum starts about 1450. So what I would provide would be a little bit more of synthesis than like a solid period 2 example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So I see you guys mentioned Christianity. Mansa Musa would make some really good synthesis. So you have Confucian schools of learning. Okay. Yeah, monasteries. Monasteries are what this whole thing is about. Monasteries and missionaries. That's what missionaries do. They live in a monastery and they spread their religion in a specific area that they think, kind of needs it, or they want to spread their religion to. So they go and they live in a monastery. I'm pretty sure, at least, please connect. God, you think after 5 times of doing this, I'd get this right. But yeah, they spread their religion through the use of missionary by going like Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormon missionaries now going around. They knock on your door. They say, would you like to talk about the Book of Mormon, or would you like to talk about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? Stuff like that. That's really what missionaries do. They just try to spread their religion as high as they want. Synthesis, monetary to the New World. Yeah, perfect. Definitely, that's perfect synthesis. I know, Jillian, if you agree or disagree.
Yeah, I would use that for my synthesis, definitely.
Yeah, I feel like this is an essay that's like synthesis city. Like you got, because it's talking about religion and the spread of such. It's such an easy synthesis because trade doesn't stop. The world never stops, especially after this period, after period 3. World's never stopped.
It only grows.
Oh yeah, and you can also connect this to religion doesn't stop. Yeah, no, it never will. At least I think. We could have a whole deep discussion about it, but Oh boy, there they go again. Here, let me mute my mic. So, Jillian, if you want to talk about some missionary and stuff while I mute my mic.
I would say that when we're talking about missionaries, we could definitely talk about disciples. I think one of the disciples of Confucianism was, I'll probably just murder this pronunciation, but I think it's Mencius, and it's like Mencius. Like someone please correct me if I'm wrong. But we have like these disciples for both Confucianism and Christianity that are kind of helping to spread the religion. But yeah, so we have them, and then Buddhism. We talk about how Buddhism kind of spread mostly through Ashoka, but they're definitely, like, missionaries are definitely encouraged by him to go out and spread Buddhism for sure.
Yeah, and I copied something from Ida that I thought was really well said, and he or she said that missionaries sent by rulers to spread influence, culture, and explore possible territories for the expansion. So yeah, missionaries were a lot of the time not strictly just missionaries; they also were explorers, or would Hinduism adopting local traditions count? It wouldn't be the strongest example, but yeah, you could talk about Mansa Musa and Ibn Battuta, yeah, definitely as a synthesis. So you can talk about Buddhist missionaries, right? And you can maybe connect it. You get maybe the complexity point by talking about women, in the Buddhist church, Buddhist monasteries, right? They're like one of the first religions to allow women to become nuns, right? Jillian, you correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people end up converting to Buddhism throughout history because it's really accepting. Again, like in India itself, we see that there's the major difference between Buddhism and Hinduism is that with Buddhism there's no caste system, so we really attract the lower tiers of the caste system.
See, we talk about leads to social appeal to Buddhism. When you think about missionaries, they're almost basically like free advertising for religions. It's kind of a very, very weird way to say it, but it's kind of basically, if you can think of it like a better analogy, say it. But they're kind of like salesmen. You have those people who go door to door, selling you something. That's basically what missionaries do. They go around and they go to different places, different towns, and they try to convert everyone.
Yeah. Hi, would you like to buy into this religion?
Exactly. Definitely something that like a lot of people, it really was effective too, especially because they would show up and they would say, you'll get salvation, you'll get, they offered things that made it look appealing. Let me see. Here, I'll drop that as a question. So yeah, right when we finish this paragraph, because that's really the end of our essay, we'll go through, identify where we earned all the points, and then we can answer some of your questions. I know we have like 7 or 8 that are sitting there right now. Wow, Buddhism's perfect. To Buddhism and helps it spread through missionary work. So there we go. That's our essay right there. It's very kind of I'm trying to think of the right word, like very choppy, but that's kind of the basic skeleton of what your essay is going to look like. So, I'll kind of do Jillian, if you want to do like a quick rundown of everything that that we went over tonight.
Sure. So tonight we were just basically talking about how you write an LEQ. So we went over the rubric, and then together we kind of wrote this essay together, had people dropping great info in the chat. So we started with our context, where we just laid out the major points of what's kind of going on globally during period 2. And then we looked more specifically at the prompt and narrowed it down to causes of the spread of new religions and belief systems. And then together we came up with 3 pretty strong ideas of trade, political support, and missionaries. And then that led us into writing our thesis, where we include both the time period, and then we expand a bit more upon the 3 key ideas that we came up with together. And then after that, we blocked out our 3 body paragraphs, and we came up with some specific examples so we could get those 2 evidence points. And then we even expanded further by getting some synthesis examples throughout periods 3 and 4 especially. And then I think Allison had asked in the chat whether or not we should include a conclusion paragraph. I don't know, Dylan, what did you do conclusions on your LEQs?
I didn't. I never really. My teacher said we didn't need one, and you really don't. You can make a few closing remarks. I used to put my context there because I didn't know what it was, and so I would just think, oh, it's just the big picture stuff. So, but no, you want to put your context right in the beginning. All I did was I restated my thesis in new words. So if let's say this thesis right here didn't earn the point. Let's just say it was bad. It was not a good thesis. Or even if there's something that specifically you don't like about it, you might want to talk about that. And then down here at the very end, you want to restate your thesis in new words. So we can maybe say, due to growing trade networks. You really want to just put it into new words. It's going to say the same thing though. It kind of also clinches off your essay really nicely. Politically active supporters, letting religion spread, and we can leave that. The use of missionaries. So there's our restated thesis. So yeah, no, you don't need a conclusion whatsoever. There's no conclusion point. There's no, So let me I know Julian, you just went through, kind of summarize what we did. So let's go through here and just think, where did we earn each point? So obviously right here, this is clearly, we got the context point. Perfect, So now over here, here's our thesis, right? So we got our point right there. And then, so here we have pretty much all, I'm not going to highlight it all, obviously, but we have all of our evidence. So we have our evidence here, and we earned both evidence points because we really explained heavily as to why, why this connects to the prompt and why this proves what we're saying. So that's where we got both evidence points. We probably got that around period 2 or paragraph 2 or 3. We also have, I'll try to find it. We had somewhere.
Synthesis in paragraph 1.
Yeah, there we go. So there we go. Synthesis. There we go. We got a complexity +1. And then we got that first point by having our whole essay be based on these causes. So that's a 6 out of 6 right there, you know. And that wasn't me and Jillian, that was all you guys, you know, y'all wrote that essay. So yeah, now, you know, your job is, if you really want to, is to, you know, take all this outline and write the essay. You kind of have everything put in front of you, so you can kind of just put it in words. I'm not, you know, obviously we're not going to sit here and wait for you guys to write it. So, but yeah, like that's definitely some good, good practice, that now that we've, you know, outlined an essay, you can definitely try to write it on your own. So here, now we can start like answering some of your questions and, you know, talking about that. So I know, you know, I don't know how we're going to do, me and Jillian are going to do this, but we'll make it work. All right. So my biggest problem is when I see the question, and since it's so broad, I'm instantly lost and stressed. Any tips? All right. So I know it's been a while since I've done the exam. So I know, Jillian, you're probably more relevant with this question. So you can go ahead and talk about your experiences.
I definitely find myself stressed when I'm taking a test. It doesn't really matter what kind of test. So for me, whenever I'm even doing AP practice tests, I know that I have to kind of try and control my test anxiety. You know so much more than you think you know, and I don't think I can emphasize that enough. So when you're looking at a question and it's really broad, just try and take a couple deep breaths. Think about, what time period is this question? And then just slowly narrow it down so that you're looking at history through a smaller and smaller lens, because you know a ton of history, you know 10,000 years of history. So just keep narrowing it down until you feel a little less overwhelmed by how much it's asking. And then you can build out and expand upon those ideas.
Yeah, definitely. I've definitely had that experience. I remember last year we had an essay on a test where it was talking about like the Ottoman and Qing dynasties, and so I definitely, you know, I didn't really know what to write down, and so I really just thought about what do I know about the essay. And if you don't really, you know, if you're so lost and stressed, don't think that just because you don't get a 6, you're not going to do well. If you know, write down some specific pieces of evidence and some, you know, maybe a historically defensible claim, you've got between 2 and 4 points right there. You know, a 4 on an LEQ, that's really good. So I know, like, don't stress that just because you don't get all the points, that's not a failure. All right. Is the format for a thesis fact plus an opinion? No, I know. I feel like a lot of people have this problem where I say like claim and they think that means like opinion. No, you're going to base your argument off of facts. It's strictly facts. And so, you know, you're not going to say you should never in your essay be saying I think. You know, your voice really doesn't matter here. I mean, I feel like that sounds kind of cruel, but you know, you're not inserting your own opinion on, you know, let's say you're writing about the Holocaust. You shouldn't write in your essay, the Holocaust was, in my opinion, was a horrible thing that should have been stopped, blah, blah, blah. You know, obviously I think we all agree that the Holocaust was a horrible thing, but it's not relevant to your, you know, to your essay. And so it won't hurt you, but it's not something that really, it might hurt your thesis. So yeah, Jillian, if you have a note to put on opinions. You know.
Yeah, just definitely stay factual when you're writing these essays. Again, like Dylan said, it's kind of harsh, but your opinion isn't really specific to what you're writing about. You're writing about history, so just keep it factual, keep it in the context of what you're being asked, and that'll help you stay on track.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so that kind of closes that one out. Is this being recorded for reference later? All right, so this is being recorded, and it's going to be uploaded to our web app, which I will drop in the chat, because I know we're going to start migrating all of our live streams over to this web app. And so, you know, you guys should probably get in as quickly as possible. But yeah, you do need a 5 Plus account to watch the replays. However, you know, I'm sure someone in here has one of those discount codes. You know, we have discount codes and we have affiliate links. So, you know, if you guys find an affiliate, you guys get $5 off. I want to say it's $20. And then you get access to all of our replays from the year. So I know now is definitely the time that if you want to, go for it and buy it. Of course, Jillian drops her link.
Yeah,
Shameless.
I'm prepared.
Do you have it like copied and pasted, or?
Yeah, I do.
What do you have it like sitting in a document?
No, I think I just I'd copy and pasted it to send to someone who had asked me for it, and it was just still on there. So I thought I'd check and see if it was still copy and pasted, and it was, so I just dropped it in.
All right. All right. Do you have a strategy for getting back on track if you just blank on the prompts? For me, I definitely am someone who tends to ramble. If you couldn't tell from these hour and a half long streams, but yeah, when you're writing your essay, just think constantly. If you write something down, think, how does this connect to the prompt, and then connect it to the prompt in writing. If you can't do that, it might not be worth your time to write down. So if you're thinking, if you're writing this essay that we just wrote, and you're starting to talk about, first you talk about, Islam spreading, and now you're talking about the Holy Wars, and now you're talking about the Crusades, now you're talking about the Renaissance. You kind of slowly find yourself drifting off into space. When I tend to do that, and I do tend to do that, kind of, like think about like driving, right? Let's think you're driving on a really straight road, right? And then suddenly you find yourself, you're sitting in the right lane, and you suddenly feel yourself kind of drifting into the left lane. You don't just sit in the left lane and wait for oncoming traffic to come and kill you. You drift back into the right lane, right? And so that's really what you should be doing with your writing. It's okay if you veer off, but then just quickly bring yourself back to what you want through maybe a transitionary sentence, or even just ending the paragraph if you have enough evidence. And Jillian, if you have anything to add,
Yeah, definitely. Because when you're writing your essays, you're trying to show whatever knowledge you really can for these prompts, but make sure it's relating back to the prompt, as Dylan said, so that you can stay on track, and just ask yourself a lot: have I answered the question, or am I answering the question? Because if you're straying too far from what the question's asking, then you're probably too off track. Like Dylan said, you really need to shift back into the right lane, and then keep going forward with what you have.
Yeah, definitely. Here, I'll move you back to not being focused. There we go. All right. How does one get rid of essay stress and not run out of time? Practice. I think that's really the one thing you should take away from this, especially, we are less than, here, bit to scary here, but we are less than a month away from the AP World exam. And so really, yeah, this is what you should be doing when you are studying for the exam. Don't just study content, write an LEQ, and then have either your teacher grade it. I'd be willing to look over it with you. I don't know about Jillian, she can.
Yeah, definitely.
So really writing practice, TBQs, LEQs, short answer questions, doing the practice skills, that will really build up your ability to write a quick essay. Like I know in the beginning of the year, last year, it would take me maybe 55 to an hour to write an LEQ. And obviously that's not good. But by the end of the year, I was probably slamming these out in like 25, 30 minutes. So it's really a very practice-based thing that the more you do, the faster you get, because you develop your own way of writing it. So by the time I had finished, I kind of had a format that I kind of just had to plug in my pieces of evidence to, and boom, I had my essay. Jillian, if you have anything to mention with that too.
Yeah, definitely. For me, I would suggest that you try and find like some type of analog watch that you can use, and then definitely just format it out like you're doing the actual thing. So find prompts on the College Board, or if you have a review book. So take those prompts and then just mock it out like you're doing the LEQ. And even if you don't write the whole essay, at least kind of like block out what you would write for it. Kind of like we did at the start with, what kind of context would I use for this, and what kind of major points can I come up with? And if you can really block out an essay to start with, and then just keep practicing and practicing, like Dylan said, then it will definitely help get rid of some of that essay stress, because I definitely know that I feel it, and I'm a pretty slow writer, slow test taker, and I can attest to the more you practice, just the faster you get, and you'll be going much smoother as you're trying to write these essays with the time that the College Board is giving you.
Yeah, definitely. Practice. You always hear that whole practice makes perfect thing. It works. The more practice you do, especially for those of you, I know Jillian's one of them, in 2 AP histories, writing LEQs is really something that's going to help your skills grow, even not just as an AP World or AP History test taker, but as I don't want to say as a person, because it's like, but, as a historical thinker, I guess as a historian, they force you to analyze and force you to use these AP World skills rather than just write, what were named 3 different, I'm not an A player actually, You have three different, identify three different things. No, it's explain three different things: causes, effects. And so that's really what the essay is all about. All right, what's a strategy for not going off topic? So Julian, I know we both just talked about this, so I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, again, for not going off topic, again, just kind of remember you have a specific question that you're trying to answer. So just kind of stay on topic for that. And when you're doing your synthesis, remember that you're connecting it back again to the prompt. So if we're in period 2, maybe you use some of those period 3 or 4 examples to get that synthesis and complexity point. But don't just keep going on and on about stuff that's happening in period 3 or period 4, because that's not what the bulk of your essay should really be about.
Yeah, definitely. Here, I'll make myself focus. There we go. So yeah, definitely with your essay, if you feel yourself veering off, definitely try to correct yourself the best you can. But really, if it's relevant to the prompt, it's worth writing down. So it's like there's kind of a threshold where it's like it goes from relevant to the prompt to relevant to what you're just talking about. So for example, the thing about like a possible chain of events, you have missionaries, then you can talk about, or political sport, then you talk about Ashoka, then you talk about the Mauryan Empire, and then you talk about, the fall of the Delhi Sultanate, then you talk about Sikhism, Colombian, blah, 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 and suddenly you find yourself talking about Gandhi. There was a point in there somewhere where you kind of chopped off the essay and began talking about India. And I would say it was probably that like Mauryan Empire, Delhi Sultanate area. So yeah, definitely I think that's how you do it. To make synthesis clear enough that it's noticed, the graders are trained, so they know what they're doing. But also, honestly, I did this with my thesis. If you want to put a little like bracket somewhere and write synthesis or I did that with my thesis, go for it. It won't hurt you. So yeah, you could literally signpost in this and just say, this is my thesis. This is my synthesis. It might help you actually read the essay so that you know that you have everything. All right, so let's move on to the next question. If you earn a complexity point in one paragraph, but don't exemplify the skill in the rest of the paragraphs, do you still earn the point? Yeah, definitely. You only have to, once you get a point, you can never lose it. Once you earn it, there's no losing it for the rest of that essay. You can only gain. So, that's really just kind of a fact-based thing. So, yeah. I know, Jillian, if you want to talk about complexity a little bit more.
Yeah, I think Tom Ritchie, for sure, he calls it kind of like the unicorn point. It's that one point that we all kind of stress over a little bit, but know that it's possible to get that complexity point, and you don't have to do that throughout your whole essay, like Dylan was saying. You really just need to show it strongly once, and you'll get that point, because again, you can only earn points. You're not getting deducted points.
Yeah, and synthesis isn't a point anymore. It used to be on the 2017 exam it was. However, now synthesis is something that can earn you the complexity point. So like that list of 5 bullets that I gave you, synthesis was one of those, connecting relevant and insightful connections across periods. That's synthesis, and that's really what you want. That's how you're going to get the complexity point at times. So yeah, let me click that now. All right, final question. Are you losing points if you go too off topic? Example, start topic Islam, earn all the points, but somehow end up at the Twin Towers in the last paragraph. You won't lose points, no. You might be wasting your time, but it's definitely not you won't lose points because you've shown the skills. So yeah, definitely. Again, if you see yourself veering off, if you start writing something down and you think, all right, what does this have to do with religion? You know that you've veered off a little bit too much. And it's definitely something that you have to work on. So practice, practice, practice. All right. So if there are any more questions, me and Jillian are gonna. At least I'll hang out. I know Jillian's free to feel like you're free to go if you want. But yeah, we'll hang out for we'll hang out for a while. Wait for any more questions to come in. Yeah. No conclusion paragraph.
Yeah, your conclusion really, if you're writing anything, is just like restating your thesis in different words, just to make sure that you get that thesis point no matter what.
Yeah. All right, so we'll hang out here for a little bit while. If you guys have anything to talk about, we can talk about that. So, I know Peter just dropped our info So I know you can hit me up whenever you guys want. Jillian probably, office hour or something.
Definitely.
And so yeah, you guys are free to talk to me and Jillian, whenever you need, if you need help with something or if you need, if you have a question. So yeah, I know definitely I'm more than happy to help, especially because doing stuff like this is what I like. So you really be doing me a service. So yeah, I think with that, we'll kind of end it off here. We'll hang out for maybe another 10, 20 seconds, wait for any questions to come in. But then, yeah, I think that kind of ends off this stream. So yeah. All right. Oh, wait. Okay. Are you guys hyped for Endgame? Damn right we are. Or I am.
I am. I am too.
We I don't even know what's going to happen, but wait here. I'm just going to drop this here. Here's the real important thing that you want to get on the essay. If you don't do this, you're going to get a 0. Okay. There you go. That's what you really want to do to get a 6 on the essay. Yeah, my next stream is probably next Thursday. We're doing weekly Thursday streams now up until the exam. And then I'm going to hope that the Wednesday before the exam, I'm going to ask Amanda if I can go live and do the Q&A, especially with Jillian if she's open to that. But I know she'll probably also be studying for the exam. So, so yeah, probably Thursdays next week. If you guys have any ideas for streams, seriously, let us know, because I remember I literally came up with the idea for this stream yesterday. I was so strapped for time that it was rough. So if you guys want me to go over something, if you guys want me to review content, test skills, anything, just let me know. We can do this in a group setting. We can, something that I've been contemplating, and let me know if you're interested in this, is doing almost like a podcast type of thing where we have just a discussion on a specific topic, and we have you guys, the audience, I can invite you guys on stream and we can have a discussion, kind of almost like a podcast or a radio show. So if you guys are interested in doing that, let me know, and I can think of a topic we can do for next week. Stuff like that. So yeah. Yeah. All right. So so it looks like we're gonna end off things here. So I know I will talk to you guys later. Jillian's probably gonna be with me on my next live stream, so she'll see you guys later.